Hello everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to our today's webinar on the VTS Release 8.60. I will give you information on new functionalities, new content in the new VTS release. My name is Leonard Schünemann and I'm happy to welcome you here today. Just to give you a short introduction from my side, I'm working in the psychology department here at Schufried and I'm the consultant responsible for HR and traffic psychology. Webinars like this will now be a standard for every major VTS release where we have new things for you, new things to introduce to you, and we will now go through all that which comes in with the new VTS release 8.6. To give you an overview of what's to come now in the next few minutes, first I'd like to give you an introduction on the news from our IT and software department. We've got lots of improvements on the VTS that I'd like to show you from the technical side. After that, I'll show you the new TA-Teens, the talent assessment teens test set that was completely revamped in the new test release, VTS release. We now have an SRA report available. You already know the staff and management reports and the SRO reports. The SRA report is the next incarnation of these. We also have a new test available, which is a brand new concept behind it, something we've not had before from the content side. Visual construction is a new dimension, a new ability we're offering for assessment, and also some things about this test that's not been there before, like touch screen availability. And last but not least, I'd like to give you an outlook on what we're currently working on. Probably the biggest thing at the moment is the test set dementia. And I'd just like to give you a bit of information on what's to come on that side. So, to start, on the technical side, the VTS Release 8.6 offers a lot of new features. About 40 new features were integrated, some based on customer requests. We did a lot on performance. The VTS is a much faster thing now, a much more stable thing. We added some things on the installation routine and increased usability of the VTS, mostly due to faster usage of the VTS. And of course, we fixed a lot of bugs. There's bugs in every software, and we killed lots of them this time. Around 100 bugs were fixed, so you will find out now that the new VTS is a more convenient tool, a more stable and faster. So, as I mentioned, some extensions were made in the installation process. First thing is that we can now communicate via a proxy server. This is important information for server setups. This is now more flexible and more adaptable to customer needs. We also included a hardware test that tests the hardware of the server system or the standalone computer the VTS is running on. It's now standard installation. Together with the VTS, you will find the VTS hardware test under Windows Home. We also have a new splash screen. This is probably a minor change, a more cosmetic change, but I'd like to point out something important for you, which is what was formerly known as computerized assessment is now digital testing. This is the new brand name for what we do. We no longer speak about computerized diagnostics or computerized assessment, but about digital testing. Digital testing is a rather broad theme that incorporates stuff like online testing, of course computerized testing we already have. It encourages touch screen testing, tablet testing, and probably in the future mobile phone testing. So we're now talking about digital testing. We already introduced this here, and I'd like you two to now talk about digital testing. And this is also mirrored in the VTS splash screen. What we also have is new options in the login dialog for server setups. This refers to the proxy extensions in the installation routine. Even here you can access your VTS through a proxy server now. Also, this allows for more flexibility in setting up systems for customers. Something else we added, now we look into the VTS, is extensions in the license management. You will now get more information here, especially when was the last license update. This is something that gets asked a lot by our customers. And we now have information here when was the last time the license key has been updated. And you also get more details on test license usage. You have more information here in the settings panel on the test administration. You will find how many licenses were used, how much is left. When might I have to buy new licenses? Very interesting information for the customer usually for planning ahead and scheduling budget and license and buying licenses. So we also have another extension which is the VTS service tool. Something like that has been around already. We extended this now and made it a standard. This helps for interaction with support with the client and yourself. You get information here on the VTS, you get the log files, everything is running together in this service tool, and you can use it easily and handy in communication with the clients. If something's not working properly, the VTS service tool will give you a good idea here. We also improved a lot on our scale, I'd like to call it. Yeah. Of course, we have the cloud testing, you have a server in there, yeah, and you might be interested in testing a few people. You might be interested in testing even more people, and your server might run out. We'll activate another server. Yeah. And you might even test more people in another room. You get another server there. This is what we call load balancing, and the VTS test player is now able to do that. We integrated a load balancer that allows you a fantastic thing, which is having tons of simultaneous assessments. We've did some test runs with around 1,000 simultaneous assessments. The VTS can now do that thanks to the load balancer. So in case of large clients, large customers, large assessments, the VTS is ready for that. Something that I really enjoy now is that we made available a CSV or an Excel export for the ranking tool. This is something customers have been asking for a long time. We currently only offered the PDF export. You could just print it as a PDF. This is now directly accessible and through Excel by using the CSV export of the ranking. So, but from my personal experience and my perspective, probably the biggest improvements are those for performance. You know, the VTS used to be a bit slow sometimes. Even on older machines, you had to wait a long time for results to load or for scoring to show up. And our IT really did a leap forward here. You have to experience it yourself. The first time you work with the VTS 8.6, it's basically overwhelming, and I'm not exaggerating here. We did lots of performance improvements. The scoring and report generation is now much faster. The VTS launches a lot faster. You will experience that. How did we achieve that? We basically dropped a lot of routines in the background that checked unnecessary things. We dropped that. It's now easier and faster for the VTS to start up. The selecting and deselecting of test persons, which could usually take a few seconds, it's now immediate. It's wonderful. Same goes for test results. Selecting and deselecting of test results. Even with bigger data sets, that could take some time. And now it's immediately. It's wonderful. Switching between the tabs in the VTS, what could sometimes take you a while, is now immediate. Same goes for navigation in the settings tab. Where usually lots of information was loaded in the background and it only showed up when all the information was there. It's now asynchronous. It shows up before all the information was loaded. So everything that's relevant already shows up and the rest is loaded in the background. Same goes for person and test result and test database. They are now loaded in the background and the tab is already there, and then the rest shows up. Also, export of person database is now asynchronous. You can work with the VTS while doing an export. It's not like it's blocked and completely busy with loading background stuff. It works properly fine during background processes. It's available. So you don't really have to go out, grab a coffee and come back if you want to do an export. You can work with it VTS. It's not blocked. We have a faster caching of scoring methods, a lot faster. What usually could take a few minutes to load the results for the B5PS, for example. That's now much faster. Same goes for the ranking tool. We've had lots of problems with the ranking taking ages. If you had a large database, it could really take a few minutes to load. Ranking is now much more efficient, much faster. So just like I said, this is possibly the biggest quality of life improvement with the VTS, with this release. You have to experience it yourself. It's really great. It's fast and accurate and really makes life a lot easier with the new release. So that was it from the technical side. We'll now switch to the content side, and the first thing I'd like to present to you here is the talent assessment. Talent Assessment Teens is a test set we're offering for quite some time now. It's a diagnostic package to clarify performance and talent in young athletes, age range around 11 to 14. The test set is thought of as a talent finder in different sports areas. That can record objective results for essential performance dimensions. So there are a few dimensions in there that can be assessed for talent selection, talent assessment, different sports. And it's not really long. It doesn't take longer than 60 minutes, so it's rather short. And this thing has been around for some time. But we're not really happy with it. There were some issues with fit scores, for example, and it wasn't really a success. So we thought we can do better, and we did better. So we revamped the VTS, the TR Teens, and made TR Teens 2 out of it. So we have a new test set here. What has changed? I'm already taking a look at the results here, but just to give you an overview. First thing, we dropped the COSI. The COSI was part of the test set, but wasn't part of the fit scoring, wasn't part of the overall scoring at all. And it really, in the first validation study we did, it didn't show any validity in that field, so we just dropped it. But we replaced it with something that we had in mind for talent assessment for quite some time, which is logical reasoning. And from the scientific side, from the research side, there were great evidence for logical reasoning being relevant in that field, so we integrated the AMT. So one test was dropped, another was added, and we validated that test set. We had a cooperation partner approach us who had access to a lot of sport teams, young sport teams in southern Germany. You see Bayern Munich was part of it, for example. And he took the test set TR Teens in the new form and validated it with these athletes. We had external criteria from the coaches of these teams who said who was a good player, who's a good talent, who is not so talented, might not have so much potential, and we correlated that and made regression analysis with our test results. And we're really successful with predicting talent and the talent evaluation of the coaches. So the new TR Teens test set is therefore validated with different sport areas, and we adjusted weights and ideal ranges of the fit scores. This is something that wasn't really convenient in the old TR Teens. There's some really strange things about ideal ranges there. We skipped that and did it all new with a proper validation behind it. And validity was great. 0.44. We found high validity for this test set, and so it is really good and able to predict talent in young athletes. And of course, we did the validation in a study, so we have a norm sample. So we have now specific and new norms for sports, which is called the new norm sample young athletes. So these are really talented youngsters that took part in the validation study, and these are now available as a norm sample here. Okay, next topic is the SRA report. You all know the reports, you know the staff and management reports, you know the sales report, you know the SRO report. You know we focus more on the report and the interpretation of results than really on the tests itself. So we're really trying to make practitioner-friendly, applicable reports for our test sets. For our safety assessments in this case, you know the SRA test set, it's been around for years. And we didn't really change the test set itself. There was nothing to really do about that, since the selection of dimensions of the SRA test set is based on a directive from the European Union that tells you what has to be assessed in terms of the assessment and personnel selection of train drivers. So that was quite fixed, but we could of course improve on the interpretation of results. And this is where the reports come into play. And for this report, for the SRA report, we searched for a cooperation partner and found like the agency of the Deutsche Bahn that does the assessments of train drivers for the Deutsche Bahn in Germany. And they helped us because they are experts from the field. They know what is important, what's the job profile, what are the important factors for train drivers, what is like critical situations where good train drivers are separated from bad train drivers. It was very interesting working together with them here because they had so much practical experience. We just had to put it to words and bring it together with the test results. This SRA report features the same information or the same structure as the SR Road report. You have that hierarchical job profile, the different levels or different areas of abilities that are necessary for the job. You've got an overall scoring, you've got an executive summary, like a short verbalized form of the entire assessment. You've got detailed test results and something new here, training recommendations. Very interesting. So based on the test results, you get recommendations on how to improve. And you also get an interview guideline. This is also something new and very interesting. Based on the test results, you will get an adapted interview guideline that you can just use as a structured interview when you're having an interview with your applicant. So what does it look like? Again, you know the structure, you know what the other reports look like, so we just kept it like that more or less. We've got the summary of results with an overall rating, and you've got that 4 areas of the job profile I already mentioned, and the test results are then calculated together into these job areas, so you have a more detailed interpretation there. You've got that verbalized then for every single aspect, like vehicle operation. You get a general introduction. Why is that important? What is that? It's just the basics. Am I able to drive a train? And then you've got the assessment, like the interpretation of results. And again, this is really close to the practitioner. So it is enriched with examples from the everyday life of a train driver. So we really work closely together with the IIS here and really have now at hand not something that sounds like a psychologist wrote it, but really is relevant information for the practitioner. So this was the SRA report. Now we'll get to a very interesting topic, a new test we introduced with that release, which is the VISCO, which is a test assessing visual construction. But what is visual construction? It's a new thing for us, for the VTS, but we all need that. We all know what that is. It is the ability to identify and reproduce complex forms and patterns. What is it necessary for? I need this for orientation in everyday life. I always have to recognize patterns and signs in my life and coordinate my movement accordingly. And use tools too. Every day I use tools. Every time I am having dinner, I'm using tools. So another very good example is, of course, assembling furniture. I think all of us have once in their life built an IKEA furniture. And it's basically that. That is visual construction. I have a manual, I have instructions, I need to understand them, what is it supposed to look like, what is the target shape, and then I have to follow the instructions and apply the rules I learned to construct that object or that shape. So this is visual construction, and it is something that is really relevant in the neurological field. The target group for the VISCO is mainly neurological patients, because visual construction is something that gets impaired easily, for example, through severe or traumatic brain injuries. It is one of the first things that get impaired through dementia. Also, Alzheimer's disease is something that affects visual construction ability. Also, in some psychiatric disorders like schizophrenic, you will find that visual construction is impaired. So this is why VISCO is more like the first step towards tested dementia, as it is one of those marker abilities that will deteriorate with age and with dementia. So you know what the usual standard test for vasoconstriction looks like. Everybody knows the clock drawing test, I think. It's like the classical test of vasoconstriction. Another one, probably the most famous one, is the mosaic test from the WISC, from the Wechsler Intelligence Scale. Yeah, we have to just build small figures from these cubes. Yeah, something not so known is probably the Ray-Ostrich complex figure test. But this is all paper pencil or manual. This is not computerized. This is not 21st century. And this is what we did with the Visco. We offer a new way of assessing vasoconstriction ability. And from my perspective, the biggest improvement here is that this entire test runs with a touch screen. You see you have that target shape on the left hand side, and on the right hand side with those two triangles back down there, you have to construct the target shape. And this is done with a touch screen. You can just drag and drop the triangles into the upper field and work with them. It's manual, and it's easy to understand, it's accessible. Of course, we tried it with older people, no problem at all. Everybody's got a smartphone today, these days. Everybody knows how to work with a touch screen. So it's even easier for older people to work with a touch screen than work with a mouse. So we initially constructed the entire test to work with a touch screen, and it's working really good. So this is like the instruction you see. The target shape is really easy, but it gets more and more difficult. You can see this from the scoring, some of the target answers that you're supposed to construct. Then it gets even more difficult. It's not an easy task. Even for healthy and young people, it's something that's quite demanding. Especially the later items are really hard. So the main variable that comes out of the Visco is the vasoconstriction ability. You see, this is the main information for the neurological psychologists here, or for those people using the test. You've got some subsidiary variables, but it all comes down to the vasoconstriction ability. It is a speed and power test too, so you have to do it fast. It's not like you have an eternity to construct the shapes. You really need to be fast here. So now to summarize all that, the Visco is a new concept. We've not had that in the VTS before, so it's something where we went ahead. We measure vasoconstriction ability. It's mostly tailored to the requirements in neurological assessment, especially because it's one of those markers for dementia. You will see that it's part of dementia too in the future. It features a brand new design and item concept. Again, we've not had that before, like moving around shapes, constructing stuff on the screen with a touch screen. Again, it's normed with a touch screen. So we initially designed it for being usable with a touch screen, and it worked great. We've got lots of positive feedback on that, and basically in the field, and as practitioners are already working with a tablet. It's just becomes in handy to work on this with a touch screen. It's got excellent reliabilities. I can tell you we're far beyond 0.90 in most comparisons. So reliability is very good. We were able to show construct validity too, with the mosaic test, for example. So we have high construct validity here too, and it's already available in English and German, of course. But more languages might follow. If you're interested, we can talk about everything. And again, soon, at the moment you've got two test forms, the S1 and the S2, which are parallel forms. And in the future you will have S3 and S4 as part of test set dementia. These will be easier forms. I already said that the Visco at the moment is not so easy. We will have easier forms for the test set dementia. Again, I said it's one of those important things that become impaired in people with dementia. So we've already touched the topic of dementia. This is probably the next big thing. So I'd like to give you a small outlook on what's to come in that respect. We're working on test set dementia for quite some time now. It's keeping us all very busy for months now. But the test set dementia is now, from the technical side, mostly done. We're currently in the validation phase and the norming phase. But we all started with the idea that we'd like to develop a test set for dementia screening. Dementia is probably the hottest topic around in neurological science. Yeah? So dementia has always been something that customers been asking for, clients been asking for that a lot. Yeah? So now we finally have that in our, or will finally have that in our inventory. It's based on DSM-5 definitions. Yeah? So we're on the edge of science here. Yeah? We're following the latest installation of the DSM-5 there with definition of criteria for dementia. It's easy to handle using a convertible notebook. Yeah. The test set is sold with that convertible notebook. The idea behind is that the practitioner or the customer can use that notebook for his work or everything else. Yeah. So he doesn't really have to buy a second tool that he only uses for the testing, but he can just work with it in his everyday life or even use it in private. Yeah. So we have that all based on a convertible notebook. You work on the touch screen of the convertible. Yeah, there's lots of interaction between the test person and the test administrator. Yeah. Some tests where the test administrator is working on the notebook and just talking to the testee. Some tests where they work on the tablet just like shown in the picture. Some where you just flap the screen, have it flat, and work on the touch screen. Yeah. So it's a really interesting thing for us to develop, as this is a brand new approach to having tests on the touch screen, and we will follow that road down in the future too. This is just like taking tests to the 21st century here. The test itself is not too long. It's approximately 1 hour. There are many different tests in there. But it's still not longer than an hour. Like I said, we're currently in the process of norming the test. Yeah? We have a target population with an age range of 50 to 85 and plus. Yeah? So we're really norming that thing for the target population. And we're validating it. And the test set dementia is not something that comes completely from Schufried. Yeah? As always, we're working together with cooperation partners here. In this case, Professor Jahn from the Technical University of Munich, who is really a very, very well-known and respected scientist and researcher in the field of dementia, especially in Germany. Yeah? And he's our cooperation partner from the beginning of Test Set Dementia. So he gives us the scientific and theoretical background, and he's also doing the validation together with us. So Test Set Dementia is keeping us busy at the moment, and it's supposed to be released by the end of this year. And then I think we'll have one really interesting new addition to our portfolio. Okay, so this was all the news for VTS 8.6, the latest release. I thank you very much for your attention. In case of further questions, or if you'd like to have more detailed information, if you'd like to take a look at the VISCO, or if you'd like to have a report of the SRA report to take a look at, you're always happily invited to refer to your account manager. In case of content-related questions, of course, you can always write me an email. So thanks again for your attention. Like I said in the beginning, webinars like these will now be a standard routine after every major release, so we will meet again in the future. Thank you very much.